English. My guest tonight, Dr. Panitan Wattanayagorn, specialist in international affairs, security, and everything in between. Thailand is going through a very important, very crucial, existential experience in trying to help resolve the Myanmar crisis. The Thai government has announced its willingness to become a peace broker in the Myanmar situation. How much can Thailand do? How can Thai diplomacy under the current situation be effective? I think Dr. Panitan can give us his ideas and his analysis. Good evening ครับ Dr. Panitan ครับ สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ Good evening คุณสุทธิชัยยุน and more importantly our fan clubs that are following this page,
right.
Although they might be uncomfortable listening on two Thais talking in English, but I think Kun Suthichai Yun's purpose is to expand the Thai thinking into the international arena,
yes.
and wanting to have more friends globally. So
right.
Please bear with us that we need to speak in English briefly in this program. So I think that's one of my concerns. Our fan clubs may not be patient enough to listen to us. ไม่สนุก They said it's no fun.
No, it's a lot of fun because I've got feedback from a lot of listeners who said, well, this is good because for foreigners who don't understand Thai, this is the only program that go deep into Thai politics, into ASEAN issues, into Thai-related issues in the region. For Thai people, they have a chance to listen to something different from the Thai context. Because in the English language, we sometimes could go deeper or perhaps more expansive in our coverage. So it's useful. I think a lot of people say, well, go on doing it. And I think some of the subjects when we discuss in English could cover in a more comprehensive way. The issue that we're going to talk tonight, Dr. Panitan, is the Myanmar crisis and where Thailand stands at the moment. How do you see the latest situation in Myanmar and the Thai initiative in this regard?
Well, not good, but at least we have a pause. In the last few days. Fighting near Thai borders have subsided for the time being. I think now we have more time to work out, how we can extend this pause to save more lives. This is one of a very crucial, daunting task that the Thai authority, the Thai players must do together with ASEAN. But of course, is another up and coming challenge. I think people who follow political news maybe have heard already that we have an empty position at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Minister of Foreign Affairs have resigned, Kun Pan Pri. So that will create another challenge. But before we go into those details, yes, I think Thailand is at a crossroad, very important one. Right now, we are now in the midst of three-dimensional battlefields warfare. One being, among superpowers, in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia. That's one battlefield, one dimension, big, wide, and far-ranging implications for years to come. Second, of course, on our border, the Myanmar crisis is approaching our borders for years. Now it's crossed over to Thailand. You see, we have seen people running for their life cross more into Thai territories. We already have hosted hundreds of thousands of people who have been affected, by conflicts, by crises, by war. In fact, Kun Suthichai knows very well. We have hosted almost all groups, from Myanmar for years, and we want them to return peacefully, safely, to their country, to their motherland, but it's not possible at this time. So this is a very complex, challenge. It happens like in the first battlefield in three-dimensional, areas, on land, on ground, in the cyber space. Kun Suthichai may be very perplexed by seeing his, media people reporting on one-sided, on the situation more than other-sided, other groups. There are a lot of fightings among reporters, on each side. We are now bombarding with different news from different sides.
Yeah,
it's more difficult.
We have to double check every story, because I think the reporters try very hard to be objective, to cover both sides of the story, but it's not easy because you get only exposure to one side more frequently than the other. And when you lose on the battlefield, you don't talk. And when you think you have a little bit small victory, however small, you try to boast about it. And a lot of times it's exaggerated. So this is what war reporting is all about. Dr. Panitan, the famous saying that the first casualty in a war is truth.
Exactly. That we are in that situation. In the first few hours of the KNU, the KNLA taking control of Myanmar, for example, across all, boards, across all, different channels and media outlets. They are just reporting that 100% is under control of KNU. Myanmar is now gone. Within a few days, it's an opposite is taking place. Myanmar is not gone, it's not under total control, and now the SAC is now fighting back, in many ways. So I think this is one example. One report suggesting that everything stopped. Another report saying, well, the crossing, checkpoints are still open. But when I check, it is true that more than half of the checkpoints along Thai-Myanmar borders have been closing in the last few weeks. Only a few critical checkpoints have been remain open until these days. But in fact, that is another impact on the ground, to the real people that are depending, for the well-beings of trade, livelihood, of themselves, depending on this stability in these crossing areas. So this is a second battlefield. The third battlefield, I'm not going to mention or go deeper into that, but in the last few days, you saw news of attacks of the power plants in the south. Coordinated attacks. This is the first time in years that the capability of these militant groups are now reaching the point that can harm the economic well-beings of the total area. These power plants are quite important, in the area. At least it sends a bad signal to the investors, to the people in the area that more trouble are coming. So this is another very complicated front involving our neighbor in the south, involving young people, involving our military that maybe overstay their welcome, in the area. So, but let's return to the second front, the longest borders that we have. I think we are now seeing more and more development of a parallel state, meaning that yes, Myanmar is not a failed state. Far from it. I think important cities, important industrial towns, important military, regiments in mainland, heartland, capitals are still under the control of the military, Tatmadaw, at SAC, and they should remain so for the foreseeable future. But yes, also the remaining smaller areas, border areas, weaker areas, with no reinforcement for years in the past, are now falling under different ethnic armed groups, which are now trying to create their own, states for the first time, more clearly. Like KNU, for example, for years KNU didn't really have a clear policy of the independent state. Now they do. So now we are facing with parallel states in different areas. Next to Thailand, next to China, next to India, and perhaps to Laos and Bangladesh. So these countries may have to establish a new, official channel, or less maybe semi-official channels to deal with those whoever are in control. In many cases, they are almost the same people, but they're switching sides, working for the new boss or the new masters, switching from SAC maybe to the new boss. But they are the same people who are working at the checkpoints, who are patrolling our borders together with our Thai forces. But they are now answering to the new bosses, local bosses. So it's going to complicate our international relations for sure. Whether or not you would recognize some of these new players, how and in what way you can incorporate them into border committees, regional border committees, local border committees, local chambers of commerce, trade chambers, industrial, associations on the ground, MESOT, spatial zone, could be connected to whom, millions of investments, are at stake, not to mention ludicrous, illegal transactions, which are now driving, dictating, the events, on a daily basis. So it's very complicated for our Thai authority to deal with them effectively. What China has done is to establish a new, paradigm. Maybe I'll use that word, paradigm, to manage that stability. A combination of carrot and sticks policies, combination of strength and economic might, and combination of exploitation of some of the weaknesses of certain groups, strengths of one group, and strike a balance and able to stabilize the situation. But no other countries can do that. China is maybe in its own category. So Thailand, India may have to find their own ways to deal with this separatist parallel states, in their own ways, and that will complicate even more so the relation with the official relation with the SAC. So I think this is a very big challenge. We need to perhaps be more proactive. In certain circumstances, maybe more aggressive. For example, putting our defense forces on borders, making sure that no weapons being transferred temporarily when they are crossing, into our borders, and no quick return with their weapons to go back to fight. So that has to be very forceful, and including, for example, patrolling the air space to make sure that no real encroachment into our territories. I think the Chinese have done quite remarkable in this sense.
Right. They have invited all the parties concerned to a meeting and say, please, limit your fighting to your country and do not encroach on our territory. And they did it successfully. I mean, at least some kind of a ceasefire, although it wasn't really too effective, but at least they were in charge. Can we do the same thing with Myawaddy? Can we invite them over to Mesok, have a cup of coffee, and then say, please stay away? Are we in a position to do that?
Well, yes, we can invite them. I'm certain that they'll come. They can even come and meet you and be interviewed on your program, I'm sure. But will they stop fighting? That I'm not certain. What the Chinese did was that they have larger forces inside the China territory, exercising. They have a lot of military exercising along that border. In other words, the Chinese are not only invite them to talk. The Chinese demonstrated to them that if they're done, what will happen to them? With a lot of Chinese reinforcement forces, we don't have those reinforcement forces on our borders, and we cannot have that kind of stick policy. So I think they may not listen to us more, based on that kind of forces. But we can use other means to persuade them. If they come. Thailand is now being seen as a neutral ground, humanitarian ground, a safer zone, and perhaps a more balanced approach adopted by our government, and that attracts them to come and talk more. But the problem is some of the groups like PDF, Suthichai knows very well, are not ready to talk yet. So you need to persuade them through your friends, maybe Washington, maybe the West, to convince the PDF and UG to come to the negotiation table in Thailand if we host that more quickly. On the other hand, the SAC, and other ethnic groups may have to give in some of their controls, or some of the positions. Then you need to persuade the Chinese, the Russians, and others to talk to them. So people said this challenge can be handled quite successfully by Thailand. I don't know, but it seemed to me that we should try, at least wait and see. Maybe not possible anymore. Adopting a reactive position in the past may be good for us, but maybe not anymore in the future.
What the Thai Foreign Ministry has proposed a Troika Plus solution, a formula for peace in Myanmar. Do you think that could work? Troika Plus, meaning 3 countries, as the core, and then inviting other members to join.
Well, I think the possibility increases now compared to maybe last year. But that depends on key members of ASEAN to come out much more unified than in the past. You know that in the past few years, a lot of differences between key ASEAN members on how to approach the Myanmar crisis. But now it seems to me they are able to agree on key positions, not only 5-point consensus. And that in principle they agree, but they agree that Thailand should move ahead on the ground, go inside Myanmar to create a safer zone, humanitarian, safe zone, and using that, secondly, to push for a pause, for a ceasefire. I don't think other ASEAN countries can do that. I think Thailand are now being supported by different ASEAN countries to do that, just because the new government adopted a more maybe balancing approach. according to some of the key ASEAN members who saw the previous government as not balanced. So I think we can try to not only expanding our activities on humanitarian assistance, but push for a temporary ceasefire. So the troika with key countries, for example, India, for example, China, for example, Japan, or even United States, could be very interesting, to assist ASEAN, to push different parties. But the key question is, are they really interested in a ceasefire?
Why not? Why not? Everyone talks about ceasefire, everyone talks about peace. You think some of the countries want war, continuous war, so they can benefit from turmoil and catastrophe?
Well, aside from military industrial complex, aside from, certain countries can sell more weapons if there are more wars. But the reality is that for the first time in maybe 3 to 5 decades, you see a real weakness in Tatmadaw, capability, Tatmadaw control for the first time. If you are fighting for 50 years, 70 years, this is your time to really push, Tatmadaw back to their places. Why give up that position? Why negotiate? I think, and secondly, young people who are participating in the fightings, are now more sure than ever that they don't want to return, under the military control anymore. I think the widespread support of the PDF, NUG, although we know that they didn't perform well, especially NUG when they were in the government. But the widespread support indicated to you that, all people, in Myanmar may think that it's time, to push the military back. And this is a strong feeling, not among young people, ethnic groups, international community. This is why you see a lot of ethnic groups that are already agree for the ceasefire are now backing out, backtracking, with the SAC, the current, KNU is a good example. Not to mention, other even more stronger armed ethnic groups, in different states. So the momentum is not with Tatmadaw. They are in a weaker position. But we need to remind some of these people that Tatmadaw may have 400,000 compared to 200,000, 17, 16 ethnic groups. Eventually, once they are able, to conscript more forces, once Tatmadaw are able, to gain more control, as you see in the last few days along Thai Myanmar border, they'll fight back, and the negotiation with them will be more difficult. This is why maybe correctly, Thai Prime Minister mentioned that this is a good time, to negotiate with Tatmadaw, with SAC. Yeah.
Well, we saw Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, and Jake Sullivan, security advisor to the White House, meeting in Bangkok recently. And some of the foreign ministry officials told me that they did discuss the Myanmar issue. So that it means that they have exchanged ideas. And there must be some common ground between Washington and Beijing on the Myanmar issue. What do you think they could agree on? And what do you think they disagree on?
Well, this week, I think the foreign minister of Myanmar is now meeting, with the top leaders in China. Perhaps to get more support, in many key areas, diplomatically and otherwise. I think Washington sees this situation as another proxy, war or challenge, not to allow the Chinese to gain even more control, beyond this point, Shan State and others. I think this is problematic, for us if Washington sees China as having advantage position, and they need to push the Chinese back, in Myanmar. That will mean that fighting may continue. So I think we need to convince Washington hard that the Chinese is not gaining, much more and should not gain more. They may be able to control a few key areas, but it is the SAC that we need to negotiate with them, bring them to the negotiation power with the PDF. This week, SAC is also in preparation for the election. I don't see how they can move ahead with that, but a lot of people say that they will do that. They will do that to gain more legitimacy, and that is going to be a more complicated situation for us. If they have an election and seemingly winning without any international observations, we're going to have another layer of complications. So all of these have to be negotiated with key different countries. So ASEAN Troika plus key partners plus Washington maybe unofficially can meet in Thailand with the Thai host, and once that move ahead, then ASEAN can take more initiative, officially, and in the end, the Myanmar parties must decide on their own future. We cannot do it for them. They must agree to stop this fighting. They must not think that they can destroy their own houses, lands. There are plans, of course, for different groups to attack more, capitals, to attack more industrial towns, to attack more economic bases. If you do that, it's going to be more difficult, to rebuild these cities, and the suffer of the Myanmar people will be even more so, and that will increase more pressure on Thailand and some of the neighbors. So this is a very important time to persuade these key players, to engage in peace talk and eventually to a ceasefire, and then perhaps election later, and bottom line, you need to ask the SAC, if they want to return to the old, formula or paradigm, or they are now ready to engage in a new talks, to create a new state, a different kind of federation, not a unitary state. If they do that, I think there will be very interesting development together with the more relaxed, measures on Mrs. Aung San Suu Kyi. I think that will be one of the key players, of this new initiative. Yeah.
But the complicated part is that it's not only the ideology about the future of the country, about the political structure of the country. It is the overlapping benefits, illegal benefits, underground activities. The casinos, the cyber scams, the human trafficking activities, drugs, all these issues, all sides in the conflict benefit from this, from all these illegal activities. So it's not easy to get rid of all these underground activities in order to convince all the parties concerned that they have to conduct honest business. So this is the most perhaps challenging task for Thailand as the proposed peace broker to intervene in this particular area.
Believe it or not, with or without war, these activities, including legal activities on natural resources, rare earth, materials, even water, gems,
gems, drugs,
energy, even water, resources is so abundant, in Myanmar. So believe it or not, war or not, there's going to be a lot of money, a lot of benefits, a lot of fighting. Yes, we need to perhaps keep in mind that these factors, illegal activities and legal activity in the extraction of the Myanmar resources are playing key parts of the conflict. But having said that, there are also what you can do on top of that. That is along with the negotiations on political systems. You need to talk on the economic, formulas or economic, negotiations, which is the case of the Palestine also. Is not successful just simply because of this issue. So I think you need to increase your efforts, in looking into these negotiation, economic term, foreign assistance, and perhaps, monopoly of some of the areas that have to be changed. The right combination of these could perhaps dampen the intention to go to war and ruin the country to the ground. You see, in other words, if there's still money to be made, economic, growth to be pushed. Perhaps I think if these people will listen, that also that could be, and I'm not saying just because of the principle. Look at what the Chinese is doing.
Yes,
It's quite prosper. On one hand, we see concern on the Chinese side on the illegal activities. On the other hand, life in those areas, trading with the Chinese are much more peaceful, prosper, and balanced. Some of my friends in Myanmar saying that, well, if you don't run to Thailand for your own life, you go to the areas next to China, you can get work, although you may not like the communist, system, but at least you're safe. Also, you can get job, and your economic well-being is not that bad. In fact, it's better than the rest of the regions. So that is also to be considered.
Right. So it's going to be a long war. Many people believe that it will not be easy and short. It's going to take a long, long time. So Thailand would have to be prepared for a lengthy war. What should our strategy be?
Well, we have, I think, we meaning different governments have prepared in many ways, and many dimensions for this, challenge. And this is not a new challenge. I think the conflict is as old as our, history, our age. But this time it's going to be more quick, more challenging, maybe higher impact. So we need to switch mode from reactive, wait and see, or even buffer zone, buffer state, or security led into a much more, dimensional, multi-dimensional, approaches, with international assistance, international efforts. Thailand could be a good, front office of ASEAN, of United Nations. Thailand could be a, front line, state to intervene in such a way that it can be more positive, But this is going to be a high risk, high return.
Right. Yes.
Different from wait and see approach, different from bamboo approach. We need to make a key strategic decisions. And we need to be more ready, more capable, put together a new mechanism, ready to move together with economic, security, and social and international efforts. I think Thailand is more ready in the past compared to the past. And the time has come. The conflict is on the border now.
Yeah, it's getting very close. It is already at our doorstep, right?
Yes, indeed.
So we hope that the Prime Minister will find a new foreign minister soon, because no one is in charge at the foreign ministry for the time being.
That is another big challenge. Is finding a foreign minister, Suthichai is not an easy task for us. Maybe this is our own fault, our bad. We have not developed, capable leaders in this area for a long time. We neglected, to develop, this kind of leaders. We have a lot of good leaders in business sector, at the international level, but in politics, yes, it's not easy to find. And also the crisis at the ministry in the past few years indicated to us that more capable people are needed, young generation are needed, which is now against, the practice of young people wanting to be more independent. They want to roam alone. They want to go doing their business without being bossed, by bureaucracy. So you're gonna have a big challenge in the next few years by the ministry, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in handling this. But we hope that the civil society can step in and help. And with that, I think Thailand can gain more recognition, and more standing that we are a neutral ground. We are a talking, point for different parties to at least engage in talking, and then we can assist them in the humanitarian ways to make sure that they are safe, and they can be they can keep talking in Thailand. Look around, it's difficult to go to different other places to talk, maybe except in China, which they did.
Yeah, they did, but then other parties will not be too comfortable. India would not like that to happen.
Yeah, well, we tried India in the last year or two, but
it
seems like
a 1.5 track, right?
Yeah.
It did go to Delhi or something, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, but I think it seemed to be far away from the heartland, from the real conflict. But it is indeed quite useful also to have India, involved.
Yeah. So we are keeping a very close watch on the situation across the border in Myanmar. At the same time, we have to put our own house in order. The foreign minister suddenly quit yesterday, in fact, Sunday, a few hours after the official announcement, the royal decree appointing the new cabinet, the second Setha cabinet, Kun Panitan, who was stripped of his deputy prime minister's position, and he only had the foreign minister portfolio remaining, so he decided that he couldn't perhaps perform his duty properly, so he submitted his resignation. So we have an empty seat at the foreign ministry and also at the deputy prime minister's position overseeing security and foreign affairs. So we hope things will get straightened out soon, because we cannot afford to have too long a pause in our foreign ministry security lineup. Thank you very much, Dr. Panitan. สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
ติดตามสุทธิชัยไลฟ์กับผมทุกวันเช้าสายบ่ายเย็นมีเรื่องร้อนเรื่องวิเคราะห์เรื่องสัมภาษณ์เรื่อง Exclusive ต้องที่นี่ที่เดียวครับไปติดตามผมใน Facebook 2 เพจสุทธิชัยยุ่นกับสุทธิชัยไลฟ์และอย่าลืม YouTube ครับ YouTube ไปกด Subscribe ที่สุทธิชัยไลฟ์กด Subscribe แล้วกดกระดิ่งเตือนคุณทันทีที่สุทธิชัยไลฟ์มาในมือถือคุณนอกนั้น Twitter ไปกดติดตามและ TikTok ครับ TikTok ล่าสุดนั้นสามารถที่จะถ่ายทอดสดสุทธิชัยไลฟ์ให้ทุกท่านติดตามได้เช่นกันสุทธิชัยไลฟ์ anywhere anytime สุทธิชัยไลฟ์คือเพื่อนที่เล่าข่าววิเคราะห์ข่าวสามารถทำให้ท่านทันข่าวทุกวินาทีจากนี้ไปครับ